Hey there, Professor Sky, DJ here, and this is the about invasive species. So, I'm out in my backyard right now, and I was able to find, they haven't flowered yet, thank God, but these little guys are Johnson grass. Sorghum halepense. You can see them right here. They blend in well with the iris, but they're getting tall. So these are Johnson grass. So Johnson grass is a perennial grass, Sorghum halepense. It's a sorghum species. It came here from Turkey originally. It's actually, we believe it to be endemic to the Mediterranean regions of Europe, Africa, and possibly Asia Minor. The vast majority of my information is coming from the US invasivespecies.org. I'll link that in my submission. But yes, it came from Turkey and it's endemic to that region. It got here in, here I wrote this down, 1830, circa 1830. There was a man in Alabama, he was a plantation owner named William Johnson, ergo Johnson grass. And he actually planted it along the beds of the Alabama River for two reasons, hoping it would help prevent erosion. It's been used in many countries for erosion control, actually, and also as a forage for his livestock. So it actually went really well at first. It went well in a lot of places. It was introduced all over the world. Australia, New Zealand, here in the Americas, in the Philippines, in other Asian countries. And it grew so fast, people thought it was a godsend. But, you know, as we know now, long-term effects tend to be cumulative and you don't really see them coming as easily. So he planted them there along the Alabama River and it just spread. So something I didn't know about sorghum is that it's interfertile, so it'll readily hybridize with any other sorghum species, and that's really interesting and could, you know, be really helpful because we could make our own highly specific cereal grains for a very specific climate. But unfortunately, it also allows prolific spread of something that you don't want going into it. So that is one of the damages it does. It can invade sorghum crops and you can't tell the difference. And you know, we actually can eat it and process the grain and make something out of it. It's sorghum, I can tell you that. But the damage it does economically, I'll say first, is that it contaminates crops. And since it's a perennial grass, it comes back every year if you don't get the rhizome, and it can readily outcompete the crops that we grow around here, especially things like corn and wheat, which are themselves grasses. So we're giving them everything they need to just spread as far as they can. Ecologically, they can do damage because they can outcompete native grass species and other native species that we probably don't want dying off necessarily. They just spread so fast, and economically and ecologically, hello, that's my dog, they can interfere with livestock because, as I'm sure you know, a lot of things, if they get a lot of certain plants, if they dry out or get frost damage, a certain type of cyanide builds up in them. And if livestock grazers eat too much of it, then it can build up in their system and cause bloat or cause death, unfortunately. I actually knew a girl who's, I don't know if it was that, but she said that there was some weed infecting the hay that he got. So how are we dealing with it? Most people are encouraged to do herbicide. We use a lot of herbicide here in the United States. And, you know, it works, but I did find, and I think it's worth noting, that populations of glycophosphate-resistant sorghum have been found in the United States and Argentina. So maybe we should try to do a few more controlled burns or just get out there and rip up the rhizome best we can. Something else I learned, the rhizome of a single Johnson grass plant, supposedly, can spread between 200 and 300 feet over the course of 1 year. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have a 200-foot long Johnson grass plant underneath the surface. As the beginning of the root dies off, the new end gets healthier, and as it extends, the older end dies off. So it travels, in a sense. That's one of the ways it infects so rapidly. It's really quite insidious. Fascinating plant. So yes, everyone is encouraged to kill it as soon as they can. It is prohibited to plant anywhere in the United States, and it is just, you know, I've heard my entire life, that's Johnson grass, get rid of it. It's just kind of been second nature. I didn't even realize there is so much to learn about it. I've been seeing it my whole life, and I'm really just now learning all this about it. But how do we prevent the introduction or spread of invasive species? I would say that first we should look to what has developed locally that could serve the purpose that we need. It might not be quite as crazy efficient, have an insane growth rate, but maybe it'll have some other benefit we don't know about, like some sort of mycorrhizal bacteria or fungus that helps benefit the other plants around it. I think something else we should do is, if we want exotic plants or to experiment with these other plants, we should do them in contained garden beds and in pots and strictly contained spaces for the things that we know will spread by rhizome. Of course, there's always the seed being spread by animals in the wind, but that would be considerably less detrimental than humans going out and planting it here and there just to see what happens. So yes, I think the best way to stop invasive is to look locally, do our best to capture and control the invasive species where they don't belong, without, you know, letting their... But yeah, and that is, I think, how we dial back on the invasive species. So, thank you for listening to my video about Johnson grass.